Chapter 12, The Diner Summit, returning to Mel's Diner, was like stepping through a portal back into her own life. The Rolls-Royce glided away from the curb as silently as it had arrived, leaving Alice standing on the dusty asphalt, the scent of expensive leather replaced by the familiar gritty smell of hot pavement and exhaust fumes. She pushed open the glass door, and the wave of noise and smells hit her with the force of a physical embrace. Mel yelling at a supplier on the phone, the sizzle of burgers on the grill, Vera's off-key humming, and the overarching eternal aroma of coffee. She had been gone for less than 3 hours, but the world she had just left, a world of blueprints, panoramic views, and sun-drenched empty houses full of possibility, felt a million miles away. She was quiet as she tied on her apron, her mind still tracing the layout of the honey-tiled kitchen, her ears still hearing Rob's gentle question, "Can you imagine people being happy working here?" Her silence was a foreign object in the diner's ecosystem, and it was detected immediately. "Well, don't just stand there like a statue," Mel barked, slamming down the phone. "The pickle guy is trying to charge me 10 cents more. A spear. It's highway robbery." He squinted at her. "What's with the face? Did the big shot take you to one of them fancy restaurants where the food is smaller than the fork?" Before she could answer, Jolene abandoned her magazine and slid onto the stool in front of her, her eyes wide with insatiable curiosity. "Spill it, Alice. Every last detail. Was the office building fancy? Was he romantic? Did he mention a ring? I need to know if I should start practicing my maid of honor speech." Vera scurried over, wringing a dish towel in her hands, her face a mask of wide-eyed concern. "Are you all right, Alice? You look pale. Did the rich food make you sick? Are you leaving us? Who's going to remember to water the plastic cactus I always forget?" The questions came at her in a chaotic volley, a mixture of romantic fantasy, anxious practicality, and pure, unfiltered Mel. Alice held up her hands, half laughing, half overwhelmed. "Everybody just take a breath," she said, sinking onto a stool herself. She took a moment to gather her thoughts to translate the monumental, terrifying, wonderful afternoon into words her family would understand. "He's moving the company headquarters here to Phoenix." She began the words sounding even more real now that she was saying them in the familiar context of the diner. Jolene gasped dramatically. Vera's hand flew to her mouth. Mel just grunted, crossing his arms over his chest as if to ward off the news. "And he's not just moving his office." Alice continued, her gaze distant. "He's looking for a house. We went to see one." "A house," Jolene squealed. "Oh, this is it. This is the fairy tale. He's the prince who's come to rescue you from this." She gestured vaguely at the diner, which at that moment included a sticky patch of spilled ketchup on the floor. "I don't need rescuing," Alice said a little more sharply than she intended. "I have a good life here." "So what's the problem?" Mel grumbled, his eyes narrowed suspiciously. "The big shot is trying to buy you out, huh? Thinks he can just waltz in here with his fancy car and his silent shoes and steal my best waitress." "He's not trying to steal me, Mel," she sighed. "He's inviting me to be part of his life." "And what kind of life is that?" he shot back. "Going to fancy parties with people who wouldn't know a good bowl of chili if it bit them on the nose. You think you're too good for this place now." His words stung, hitting closer to her own fears than he could possibly know. "No," she said, her voice rising. "That's what I'm afraid of. I don't know anything about that life. I'm a waitress, Mel. I'm a singer in a joint called the House of Veal. What am I supposed to do at one of his corporate dinners? Start taking their drink orders?" The raw honesty of her confession silenced them. They saw past the romantic dream to the terrified woman sitting before them. It was Mel, surprisingly, who broke the quiet. He uncrossed his arms and leaned against the counter, his expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. He looked for a moment like the man who had stood on her porch, defeated and relieved after his own brush with a life that didn't fit. "Look, Bones," he said, his voice gruff but stripped of its usual bite. "I was almost Mr. Percent Sarah James. I know what it feels like to look at a life that's all shiny and new and think it's better than your own." He paused, wiping a clean spot on the counter with a rag. "That life, it chews you up if you're not careful. The whole thing with Benny Delmonico and Malibu Mel's, I wasn't thinking about building a new diner. I was thinking about being someone else. Someone who wasn't just a guy who runs a greasy spoon. He looked directly at her, his gaze steady. Don't make my mistake. This ain't about his world or your world. You got to make sure that if you do this, you're building a world together. And you damn well better make sure you don't stop being Alice Hyatt, because Alice Hyatt, she's pretty great. Mrs. McGregor better be too. The unexpected wisdom, the raw, heartfelt advice from the last person she expected it from, left her speechless. A lump formed in her throat. Just then, the bell jingled again, and her son Tommy walked in, dropping his backpack onto a booth. Hey, what's going on? He asked, sensing the heavy atmosphere. Did Mel finally get charged for serving that chili? Later that evening, after the diner had closed and the Arizona sky was painted in strokes of orange and purple Alice, and Tommy sat on the steps of their small apartment building. She told him everything about Rob's offer, the glass tower, the beautiful house with the pool, and her own swirling vortex of fear and hope. He listened patiently, his long legs stretched out, his expression serious. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time, just watching the last of the light fade. You know, Mom, he said, finally turning to her, for as long as I can remember, everything you've done has been about me. Working all those shifts at the diner, saving for my college, making sure I had everything I needed. You built your whole life around being my mom. He looked at her, and in his eyes, she no longer saw the little boy she'd raised, but a kind, perceptive young man. You've spent almost 20 years taking care of me, he said softly. Maybe it's time you let someone take care of you. Rob's a good guy. He makes you happy. I can see it. Don't be scared of being happy, Mom. His words, so simple and so profound, were a gift. He wasn't just giving her his permission. He was giving her back her own life, telling her it was okay to choose something for herself. The weight of 1,000 small sacrifices she'd made over the years seemed to lift from her shoulders. After he went inside, Alice remained on the steps, her guitar resting in her lap. The diner summit had not given her an easy answer, but it had given her something more important: perspective. Her family, the one forged in the heat of a diner kitchen, was not a cage holding her back, but an anchor giving her the stability to dream. And her son, the center of her universe, wanted her to fly. The decision was no longer about what she would lose, but about what she could build. With a new sense of clarity, she placed her fingers on the frets. A new melody began to emerge, hesitant at first, then growing stronger in the warm desert twilight. It wasn't a sad song or a shy song. It was a song about blueprints and butterflies, a song about standing at a window with a view of a brand new world and finally having the courage to think about stepping through. Chapter 13, The Audition. The next morning, the Arizona sun rose with a particular clarity, as if the world had been washed clean overnight. Alice woke before her alarm, not with a jolt of anxiety, but with a quiet, steady hum of energy in her veins. The fears and doubts that had clouded her mind for days were still there, but they were no longer a paralyzing fog. They were simply clouds in a much larger, brighter sky. She made coffee, the familiar ritual grounding her, but as she stood by her kitchen window, watching the city wake up, she felt a profound shift within herself. She wasn't just a woman reacting to a proposition. She was a woman preparing to make a choice. At the diner, the morning rush was its usual brand of controlled chaos. Alice moved through it with a newfound grace, her steps lighter, her smile less practiced and more genuine. She refilled coffee cups, took orders for 2 eggs, wrecked and listened to Henry complain about the city council, all while a silent conversation played out in her own head. She was rehearsing. By mid-morning, as the initial chaos subsided, she knew it was time. She wiped her hands on her apron, took a deep breath that smelled of toast and fresh coffee, and walked to the payphone at the back of the diner near the restrooms. It was an old, battered rotary phone, an anachronism in a rapidly changing world. It felt fitting. This was a conversation that deserved a certain old-fashioned gravity. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she dropped a coin in the slot and dialed Rob's office number from memory. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the heavy black receiver. Rob McGregor's office, a professional voice answered. "This is Alice Hyatt for Rob," she said, her own voice sounding surprisingly steady. A moment later, his warm voice was on the line. "Alice, I was just thinking about you. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Rob," she said. "Better than fine." She took another deep breath. "I've been thinking about your proposition, about the office with the view and the house with the honey-colored tiles." And he prompted gently, a universe of hope and patience. in that single word. This was it, her audition. Not for him, but for herself, for the life she was deciding to claim. And I want it, she said the words clear and strong. I want to see what that life looks like. I want to build it with you, Rob. She could hear his sharp intake of breath, the beginning of a happy response, but she held up a hand as if he could see her needing to say the rest. But before we start picking out paint colors, you need to know exactly who you're building it with. I'm not going to be the woman you might have imagined. She began to pace the small worn patch of linoleum in front of the phone. I love that beautiful house, but my home, my anchor, is Mel's Diner. I'm not ready to give that up, not yet. I need this place, these people. They're my bedrock. And my singing, she continued, the words tumbling out, now a declaration of independence she didn't even know she'd been writing. It's not just a hobby, Rob. It's my soul. It's the part of me that remembers who I am when I'm just a pair of tired feet at the end of a 12-hour shift. I'm still going to sing at the House of Veal or any other place that will have me. I have to. She stopped pacing and leaned her forehead against the cool metal of the phone booth. I guess what I'm saying is I'll come to your corporate parties and I'll learn the names of all the board members. I'll even try to figure out what a stock option island, but I will never be just a corporate wife. I'll always be the woman who knows how many pickles are in Mel's economy-sized jar and who can tell from the sound of a customer's sigh whether they need coffee or a piece of pie. I'm Alice Hyatt. And if that's the woman you want to build a house with, then my answer is 1,000 times yes. She finished breathless, her heart pounding. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a beat, then two. For a terrifying second, she thought she had miscalculated, that she had laid out a life too messy, too complicated, too real. Then he laughed. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a deep, joyous, unrestrained laugh that seemed to pour through the phone line and wrap around her. Alice, he said finally, his voice thick with emotion and amusement. Oh, Pudge. Did you really think I wanted anyone else? He took a breath and his voice became serious tender. That woman you just described? The one with bedrock at a diner and a soul that sings in bars. That's the only woman I ever asked. I don't need a corporate wife to host my parties. I have staff for that. I need a partner. I need the woman who taught me how to truly listen again. I need the woman who isn't afraid to stand up to a grumpy short-order cook or a two-bit nightclub owner. The woman who can make a whole room of strangers feel a little less alone with just a song. He paused and she could picture the warm, earnest smile on his face. Your world doesn't threaten me, Alice. It fascinates me. It's the reason I fell in love with you. So you keep your bedrock. You keep your soul. You bring all of that glorious, messy, complicated life with you. I'm not just making room for it. I'm counting on it.